Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Captain America, The Winter Soldier. It takes place in a darker political climate than the first one did, and in a completely different time than the first one did. You really can't have even seen this movie if you hadn't seen The Avengers, because they're really living in the aftermath of New York, as they often call it, living in a world of paranoia and a government that's not sure exactly how they're going to fight this new form of supervillainy that's been terrorizing the Earth. So S.H.I.E.L.D. has been trying to come up with preemptive measures to kind of take care of things like this, and they're about to launch more security and trying to, as Robert Redford says, you have to tear down the old world to start building a new one. Captain America is used in the beginning opening scene to fight against some pirates, but it really seems like a cover so Black Widow can get some information that S.H.I.E.L.D. needed for other operations. And Captain America really doesn't like these kind of covert ideas or greater good ideas, these kind of dishonest, sneaky ways. Captain America is an honest, red-blooded American kind of hero, and his conflict with what the government and what S.H.I.E.L.D., who he works for, is really doing. And that comes to a head when Nick Fury is injured and Captain America and Black Widow have to go rogue and figure out what kind of conspiracy is going on within S.H.I.E.L.D. Falcon's involved also. This is a film that could only really exist in the Marvel Universe and really uses the continuity in a way that's not just there to set up other movies. It definitely draws upon the rich continuity that they've built up over this cinematic universe to really do something interesting. It's really kind of a film that can only exist as a sequel, and a film that's really probably the most post 9/11 Marvel film. Now, technically, time-wise, they all are post 9/11 movies, but this movie especially, I think, is really dealing with paranoia and talking about a major event, and it's interesting or coincidental that they refer to it as New York, which shows a different kind of government, a different view of government than we had in the first Captain America movie, and it definitely shows the juxtaposition of this America who everyone could believe in and had faith in at that time and the America we have now. That juxtaposition is always going to be there because of the character of Captain America. A lot of people bring up because of Robert Redford is in the film. It has a major role in it, that this is kind of harkening back to the conspiracy films of the 70s, like 3 Days of the Condor. And it kind of does, but for my money, I really think this really reminds me of things like In the Line of Fire and Clear and Present Danger and things directed by John McTiernan, political thrillers that were as much about character as they were about having cool action sequences. And this film definitely has a lot of good action sequences, but it's almost as important in this film, and something that Marvel's always been really good at is caring about the characters as much as they care about having the spectacle of it all. And I think more so this film than I've seen in any of their films since the first Iron Man, which is really something I've always liked about them, and I'm glad they've picked two directors like Anthony and Joe Russo. It's a lot to do with how Captain America feels about what he's doing, about the people he works for, and his relationship with Black Widow, S.H.I.E.L.D., and all that, I think definitely comes into play in this film. And it's really a lot about characters and their relations as much as it's about this conspiracy film. Even though this film is juggling a lot of different balls in the air and having, introducing a new character in Falcon and having all these lofty ideas about S.H.I.E.L.D. and introducing a new villain and introducing a lot of things, it still really works very well and doesn't feel very cluttered. But if I were to explain to you everything that's going on in this film without you seeing it, you might think it would be. But Anthony and Joe Russo understand really what's important about a Marvel movie really is the character. The Captain America films are the real postmodern franchise in the Marvel Universe because the first film is very much influenced by World War II films, or really films made after World War II about World War II, like Indiana Jones. And this is more done like, I think, kind of more of a political thriller type of film. They're very much films that are influenced by other genres of film. You can always tell in both the Captain America films that they're very influenced by other older films, but kind of done in a newer superhero-y way. And the Iron Man films and the Thor films don't really have that as much. And I think that's definitely one of the successes of the Marvel Universe, is each of these franchises are very different. They might all be superheroes, but Captain America is different from Thor and different from Iron Man. It was really interesting to see a big studio film run this well. And I always think about Marvel Studios as big studio films done right and big blockbuster films done well, and like the system works. At this point, usually when you're making a sequel, you usually have way too many characters, you have way too much spectacle, and this film seems to be way more about character than the first film. The first Captain America film, I always felt they pushed in like almost, way too many issues of Captain America into one movie. And this is The Winter Soldier, which is still a big story arc, although I am not as familiar with it, really, unfortunately. It lets them develop the characters more. It doesn't feel as rushed, you know, when they're just dealing with a smaller kind of comic book arc, rather than dealing with his entire World War II run in one movie. The action sequences are actually shot fairly well, but they're shot in kind of a very modern way, which I'm not usually a fan of shaking cam with action sequences. Usually you're hiding something and you have bad fight choreography, and it's not as thrilling if you did have the camera still. They still have it in there, which I'm not in love with, and you can tell Chris Evans, or whoever his stunt double is for some of it, did a great job with the fight choreography and the fight scenes. But they move the camera, but you can still kind of tell what's going on. There are a couple times where I was like, whoa, that went by too fast, what happened? But for the most part, Chris Evans really can move with the camera, and the way they move the camera with action sequences was actually kind of inspired. I never understand why you do that, because you're having an intense moment for the characters dramatically and you move the camera, I think it represents something. But when you do it in an action sequence, it's just like, well, did this really need to be more intense? He did just hit that guy with his shield. When they have him jumping on a plane or something, you can see it very clearly. But when he's fighting a guy, they like to shake the camera all around. I don't know, maybe the cameraman was really excited. Chris Evans really is the living embodiment of Captain America. I mean, he's so good in this role. I think Marvel's done an excellent job of picking actors. I can't really even imagine Captain America without him. He's so perfect in the role. It just seems to be the living embodiment of him. He's so tied to the role, it's kind of hard for me to imagine him in other stuff. And I've never really liked him in a role as much as I like him in Captain America, so maybe that's why. I think he's even gotten better as the films go on. Scarlett Johansson is getting to be a really great action star. As complicated as the Black Widow's history supposedly is in these films, and all the secrets she has to hide, she still has that kind of aura of secrecy and mystery to her, even if the more we've gotten to know her, you think that mystery would kind of go away. But her and Samuel L. Jackson are really good at keeping that mysterious side going. And Robert Redford, everyone's pointed out, he's playing the role of the guys who used to fight back in the 70s when he made those films. He is actually very good, and he definitely gets what he's doing with the role, which I think makes it even better. But obviously he was in all those movies and he played against all those guys, and it feels like he took notes and has been waiting to do this kind of role. I was surprised how much I liked it, and I have to say it's probably in my top 3 of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know about Marvel films in general, but the only 2 films I like more than this would be the Avengers and the first Iron Man. I did grow up with Marvel comics, and I did love all these characters when I was a kid, so I have a certain attachment. It's always a big deal for me to see a Marvel movie, whether it's their studios or not. There is still kind of a thrilling feeling about seeing like a cool, fun Marvel movie for me. I've kind of held a tradition with comic book movies, and that's with my dad. My dad and I got into comic books together when I was 7, and he still collects quite a few comic books. Whenever there's a comic movie and I like it, I have to let him know that it's really good and he has to see it. And between the first credit scene and then the end of credit scene, I texted him to tell him how much I enjoyed this film. So that's probably kind of the badge of honor if I like a superhero movie. All the fun stuff about Captain America, but all the political intrigue and kind of the mirroring of what's going on in the political landscape with drones and corrupt politicians, and it reflects the politics of the day. And I think it does it very, very well, and seems to be able to do that while still being the same kind of Captain America we're used to. Sure, it is building to a bigger universe and a bigger story, but that never bothered me as much. You know, I like this piece of the story, and I think that's really new for big filmmaking and big studio tentpoles to take on these kind of ideas. And at this point, I think this is one of the better ones to take it on. And I'm not really counting like the after credit sequence and the between credit sequence. I'm just counting the movie. And if you're gonna have this big cinematic continuity of all these films and all these comic books like they have in the Marvel comic books, it's to tell good stories. And that's what Marvel used their continuity for, to tell these crazy stories that involved all this backstory and continuity, and you'd have to buy thick graphic novels back in the day to catch up on. And that was how Marvel Comics works, and comic books works, but especially Marvel Comics. That was always kind of the cliche. And the fact that Captain America is using that in such a way to make kind of this rich political story is actually exactly what a Captain America movie really should be. It shows more of using that continuity to tell a great story and showing the aftermath of the Avengers than anything that I've seen from any of the other Marvel films. And this is definitely my favorite of their phase 2, so far at least. These are big, dumb, corporate, big blockbuster movies, but there's a certain thing to be said about how and when that is done well, and how they can use the stories within this and use the continuity to tell a really interesting story within that universe. Captain America works as a big dumb action movie, but it also works as kind of a cool political thriller, more so than I've seen any big budget movie succeed in as much as it does. Captain America Winter Soldier kind of shows me that as much as Marvel makes these big blockbuster movies, they haven't lost their way yet. They've kind of understood where they need to go, and I think Captain America Winter Soldier shows that better than any of their recent movies I've seen thus far. So if you've seen Captain America the Winter Soldier and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.